before he was born, and his mother died when he was 6 years old. His guardianship moved to his grandfather at first. Then, when his grandfather died, it moved on to his uncle Abu Talib. Now that he lost his uncle and wife, he lost most of the protection of his clan. Being tired of Quraysh's assaults and rejection, Muhammad started looking for another chance for his cause outside of Mecca. The Prophet made a decision to go to Al-Taif, 150 kilometers south of Mecca, in the hope of finding a stronger collaboration from its people. It must have been horribly painful for Muhammad to have made such a decision. He knew that if he left the city, his life would be endangered by the lawless Arabia, and that if he had to return to Mecca, he would have to find a new clan to protect him, which might not be possible. In Al-Taif, the Prophet was utterly turned down by the city's 3 leaders. One leader said to him, "If God sent you, I will tear down the hangings of the Kaaba." The second leader told him, "Couldn't God find anyone else other than you to send?" The third leader refused to meet with the Prophet, but sent his servant with this message, "I do not need to speak to you. For if you are a messenger from God as you claim, then you are too great of a person for me to address. And if you are a liar, it is not befitting for me to speak to you." Knowing the consequences if he returned to Mecca, Muhammad appealed to them to conceal the news of rejection from Quraysh, or to allow him to stay among them. His plea was also rejected. Instead of the expected kindness, they turned loose their children to follow him and threw stones at him until his head was severely cut. He bled until the blood came out of his shoes. Just outside of town in a vineyard, the Prophet and his servant rested and prayed these words, "O my God, unto you I complain of my weakness, of my helplessness, and of my lowliness before men. O most merciful of the merciful, you are Lord of the weak, and you are my Lord. Into whose hands will you entrust me? Unto some far-off stranger who will ill-treat me? Or unto a foe whom you have empowered against me? I care not if your wrath is not on me." Upon this supplication, the angel of mountains came to the service of Prophet Muhammad, asking his permission to close the mountains on the people of Taif. But despite his deepest wounds of rejection, Muhammad replied, "No, God may bring from their offspring people who may testify to the oneness of God and worship Him." The Prophet was magnanimous. His zeal for peace and forgiveness indeed overpowered his personal anger and self-wounds. Testifying to this fact, God revealed, "And indeed you are of a great moral character." Quran 68:4. The Quran also said, "And we have not sent you, O Muhammad, but as a mercy to the worlds." Quran 21:107. Now, Muhammad had no other choice but bear the pain of rejection and humiliation and return to Mecca. The next task for him was to find protection in Mecca. He sent his servant Zayd with the names of several tribal leaders in the hope that one of them would accept the request. Only one, Al-Muti ibn Adi, who was an idolater, accepted the protection of the Prophet. For the next 3 years, Muhammad was under the protection of a disbeliever. As expected from the Prophet, who was sent to teach wisdom and rationality, he had to deal with the new circumstance differently. Now he would no longer speak low of their idols, nor would he introduce himself to Quraysh in the way and frequency he used to. Instead, he channeled his efforts to the people who visit Mecca, especially during the pilgrimage season. And this flexibility in approach seemed to be fruitful. For example, he met with some people from the city of Yathrib who were favorable to his call and accepted Islam. The few converted Yathrib Muslims went back to their people and made more converts. In the next pilgrimage season, 12 of them met secretly with the Prophet and made a covenant with him to act and live up to the highest of standards. He asked his companion, Musab ibn Umair, to go with them and be his ambassador in Yathrib. In Yathrib, the Prophet's ambassador and the 12 Yathrib Muslims were successful in introducing Islam in the city. In the next year's pilgrimage to Mecca, 70 Yathrib Muslims met again, secretly with the Prophet, and made a pact with him to live righteously and give him protection. The Prophet had them select 12 representatives from amongst themselves, possibly reflecting their corresponding tribes, to report to Musab. Under this leadership, the Yathrib Muslim community soon became a significant power. Now, the scale of the relative power between the Quraysh tribe and the Muslims had begun to shift in favor of the Muslims. 11 years after the first revelation, the miraculous journey of the Prophet to Jerusalem and his ascension to the seven heavens took place. In this remarkable journey, Muhammad met with his brother prophets, Abraham, Moses, Jesus, and all other prophets sent by God, and he led them in a prayer in Jerusalem. From Jerusalem, he ascended to the seven heavens, again meeting with the prophets. It was here he received the Muslim duties of the 5 daily prayers. Muhammad's meetings with all the prophets demonstrates the close ties and common grounds between Islam, Christianity and Judaism, as well as other revealed religions. Since the conditions for the Muslims in Yathrib was far better than that of Mecca, most Meccan Muslims migrated to Yathrib to escape rejection and execution. They left behind their loved ones and belongings. Late in the 12th year, from the first revelation, the Prophet himself received inspiration to migrate to Yathrib. He instructed his close friend, Abu Bakr, to prepare 2 camels, food and supplies, and set them on standby for the journey. The Prophet also hired a travel guide for his convoy. Observing the Muslims' migration and success in Yathrib, Quraysh leaders were getting nervous and furious. Out of other options, they resorted to use more violence and plotted to kill Muhammad without the fear of reprisal from his clan, the Banu Hashim. The plot to kill Muhammad was to be carried out by a representative from each of Quraysh's clans, with each plunging his sword into him. In this way, the Prophet's clan would not be able to fight all of the clans of the Quraysh combined. The Prophet was informed by Allah of Quraysh's plan and gave Muhammad the permission to migrate to Yathrib. The Prophet told his close friend Abu Bakr, who was all too happy to accompany the Prophet in his journey. On the night of the journey, the Prophet instructed Asma, Abu Bakr's daughter, along with her brother Abdullah, to deliver food and the news of Quraysh's plan to his hideout at Cave Thawr. He also instructed Abu Bakr's servant to graze a herd of sheep where the Prophet's convoy and messengers walk, to destroy their footprints. This helped prevent Quraysh's assassins from tracing their footprints to their hideout. On the night the murderers surrounded the Prophet's house, Ali ibn Abi Talib, the Prophet's cousin, offered to wrap himself in the Prophet's cloak and lay in his bed, knowing that Quraysh will not harm him. The Prophet made his escape from Mecca along with Abu Bakr. To mislead the Meccans, who believed he would head north to join the rest of the Muslims in Yathrib, Muhammad and Abu Bakr headed south instead, to their hideout, the Cave Thawr. When the murderers entered Muhammad's house to kill him, they were disappointed to find out that it was Muhammad's cousin who was in the bed. The leaders of Mecca called for a wide search for Muhammad and offered 100 camels as a reward to the one who apprehended him. This lucrative reward attracted many people to search for Muhammad. Because of his well-devised plan, no one was able to find him. The Prophet and his friends stayed in the cave for 3 days. During the nights, they were kept informed of all news and developments of what was occurring in Mecca. After 3 days, the Prophet, Abu Bakr, and their guide took the Red Sea route to Yathrib to ensure their escape. After 10 days' journey, Muhammad arrived safely in Yathrib. That day in mid-June, 622 AD, marked the beginning of the Islamic calendar and the founding of the Muslim nation. Muhammad was well received in Yathrib, and the people named their city Madinatu an-Nabi, the city of the prophet, or Medina for short. Not long after his arrival, the prophet built the first mosque from which he began delivering his messages. Along with this spiritual development, the prophet made other social and political developments in the city. These developments served to establish peace and strengthen the bonds amongst the people in the city. He established a peace between two major tribes in the city. He also established a transitional league of brotherhood between the Meccan emigrants and the Medinan Muslims. With the 13 Jewish tribes living in Medina, he forged a treaty called the Constitution of Medina, which ensured everyone's freedom and safety, people's political rights, freedom of belief, freedom of enterprise, and trade were protected. Also, this constitutional document spelled out individual citizen obligations, sanctity of life, prevention of crime, laws of municipalities, and the dignity and equality of people governed under the law.
Prophet Muhammad established a charter or a constitution which clearly established the rights and the duties of non-Muslims, and in particular Jews and Christians within the community. And there was an alliance.
There were alliances between Muslims and Christians and alliances between Muslims and Jews. Therefore, the idea that we are all descended from the same Abrahamic religion holds true.
The Constitution of Medina really demonstrated the extent to which Medina was not simply a Muslim city or a Muslim community. That in fact Medina was to be a community that incorporated people of other faiths.
Here in Medina, the prophet was reaching out to the Jews. He was teaching the Muslims and Jews who attended his sermons what was revealed to him from the stories of Moses, Jesus, and other Israelite prophets. Also, the Muslims were told to face Jerusalem in their prayers, like the Jews and Christians did.
As we also know, early on, the prophet expected that Jews would, in time, accept the message of Islam. And indeed, the early Muslims faced Jerusalem initially. However, when it became clear that that acceptance wasn't going to come, the Quran revealed to Muhammad that the direction of prayer be changed to Mecca.
Regarding Muhammad's grand work in Medina in establishing law and order, Karen Armstrong, in her book, Muhammad, A Biography of the Prophet, stated, "Unlike Christianity, which came to birth under the Roman Empire, where the social and political orders were already established, and Jesus and St. Paul had to mainly worry about the spiritual order, Arabia had no political or social order. Under this constitution, Muslims, Christians, and Jews lived in peace and harmony. It also gave protection to the Jews and Christians who were minorities in the Muslim lands."
The Golden Age, particularly in Spain in the medieval period, is a flourishing time, particularly of Jewish and Muslim collaboration. When Jews were able to live and prosper and contribute to the general society when they were a minority living under Islamic regimes.
As the new immigrants arrived into Medina, many of them fell ill, having no immunity against the kind of diseases existing there. The prophet formed a task force and asked them to remove the city's wastes from its streets to a trash dump area called Al-Jufa. He made this prayer, "O Allah, purify Medina and help us move its disposable to Al-Jufa, and cure our sick and make us love it in the same way you made us love Mecca." As a result of this work, a healthier environment for all the citizens was achieved. Another urban task Muslims conducted was improving the water and irrigation systems in Medina. The prophet, along with the city's water drilling experts, drew up plans for drilling 54 water wells in and around the city. Upon its completion, water for the city and for irrigation was plentiful. The prophet issued land deeds for improvements to dead land. He said, "Any who improves a dead land, he will have the right to own it." As a result of this work, the agriculture of the city grew and prospered. The third task the prophet undertook was to light the city streets. Tamim ben al-Azad Dari had